This is a step-by-step guide that is designed to give you the most effective and efficient way to go about changing your lower control arms, and is designed also to save you time. Now, before I even get started, normally the night before, or you know, the moment I know I'm going to do this job, and I don't know for certain this even actually helps, but I normally grab some type of penetrating lubricant and I go ahead and I spray it in right here around these torsion bars, both at the front and at the back of them, just in case you're one of those guys who just starts to work without watching the whole video. There are a couple tools you must have to do this job that are not in everybody's garage. One of those is a torsion bar removal tool, which I'll talk about soon, and the other one is a 36mm socket. It's a big one that most people won't have. You're going to start this job by lifting both sides of your truck and getting it up on jack stands and taking those front tires off. Now, I recommend going ahead and putting your front tires right here, if you can kind of see, just barely in front of the torsion bars where they connect back there. And there's two reasons I do this. The first is for safety, because if a jack stand fails, at least falls on your tire and can't crush you. But the second reason is because later on, it's going to be a little easier to manhandle those torsion bars, which are kind of heavy, if you can sit them up here on the tire. With the truck up in the air, there's two things that we need to mark. And the first one is the very top of your torsion bar, just so you know the orientation of it as it goes into the control arm. And so I just took like a paint pen and marked just a line on there. You could use some chalk, or I mean, heck, you might even get by with a Sharpie, or you could scratch it if you needed to. The other thing you need to mark is the height of your bolt going into the torsion bar key. What the easiest thing to do is to spray it with a little spray paint. You can see I sprayed mine with some white spray paint, but you can mark it with anything else too, just so you kind of know exactly how many threads are hanging out. And that is, as a last resort, the other option. You could just count the number of threads and also count the number of turns that you turn the screw to get them out. I like to start this job by doing the hardest thing first, which is removing the torsion bars. And I do that because if sometimes they do not want to come out, and that'll give you a chance to give up and take this job to somebody else and give them that hassle. But let's start there. And what you're going to need is a torsion bar removal tool. It is a specialty tool. I'm going to put a link in the video description that's going to have a link to pretty much every tool I use today. And this one I really like. It's pretty cheap. It's by OMT, and I've used it a bunch of times, and as you can see, it's held up really, really well. Hook up this tool. There's a little divot up under here. Ooh, look at it, very good. There's a little divot right there that this part of the tool will go up into, and then likewise on the very top is a spot that will hold the other side of the tool. And then all you're doing is simply pressing this. Everybody's keys will be at different heights and different depths, and they are adjustable. And what these do is they set the ride height of the truck in the front end. The farther in this bolt is, the rougher your ride will be and the taller your front end will sit. And in my case, mine are in pretty far because I have oversized tires, and when I put this truck in reverse, it wants to rub. So I had to crank them up a little more than I'd like. Well, you can see it now, but as you can see, this now moves around in there, which means the tension's off. So that out, then I do that. I'm hoping to get this thing out with an air hammer. I've had good luck doing it this way in the past. Hopefully today is one of those good days. So I'm going to be hammering right here, which is kind of in the center of the key, and that is the torsion bar right there. If you don't have an air hammer, you could use a punch and a sledgehammer. Wish me luck. All right, that's good. That came out nice and easy. Don't know if the penetrating oil helped or if it's just the air hammer did the trick, but sometimes these can be an absolute nightmare. And so this truck's in pretty good shape. It's not very rusty under here. But if by chance you were unable to get this thing out, hammering there, you know, honestly at that point the easiest thing to do is to just take it to a shop and let somebody else handle it. But if you must handle it yourself, another option is to cut. Or well, actually, the next option would be to heat this up as hot as you could get it with a torch, and then go hammer it back there again and see if that could release it. And if that doesn't work and you're gonna be putting on new control arms anyway, you could cut a slit right here and get them out that way. And if I was at that stage, you know, I'd probably just do the torsion bar last. But let's keep moving. Next up, let's remove the bottom of the sway bar end link. You don't need to remove the top. Sizes could be different on these nuts because they change. This is a common wear item and they get changed out quite a bit, but mine is 9/16. Next up, let's remove the bottom of the shock. You don't have to mess with the top. This is 13/16 on both sides. There we go. I want to pull this shock out of our way, so I try to just get it out of that channel. I don't want to stay over there, but that's good enough. We'll be able to push it out of our way as we take this CV axle out now. We need to remove this dust shield now so that we can get the CV axle out. I've got an itty bitty little screwdriver here. I'm trying to find a little place to wedge it back there. And this is where we need that 36mm socket I was telling you about. So much easier with an impact. If you have to use a breaker bar, it's going to take a lot of force because I believe the torque spec on this is pretty darn high. I'd have to look it up, but it's at least 175 pounds/foot. Now we remove all these bolts on here. I find this is easiest to do by just sticking an extension in here and then rotating this as I go until I have them all out. It's one of the benefits of having the whole truck lifted in the air right now instead of only the side you're working on. So the reason that I'm changing out these lower control arms today is because as I would drive around and go over a speed bump or pull a curb or anything like that, I would hear a ka-thump, ka-thump. Sounded a lot like a bad ball joint, but I checked my ball joints and they were good. And when I looked at the bushings on the lower control arms, those were looking pretty rotten. So my thought is, I think it was moving around inside those bushings making that noise. I also noticed some bad tire wear on one side of the truck, which made me think that because those bushings are bad, my last alignment didn't hold. A little bit of a tight fit here, but it's coming. There we go. Only other thing we need to work on now is breaking this ball joint loose. So the first thing we need to do, if you look up under here, you're gonna see a little cotter pin. I'm gonna take some pliers, we're gonna straighten that thing out and then pull it out the other side. New ones should come with new cotter pins. So if you need to cut it off or break it or anything like that, feel free to do it. With that cotter pin removed, now we can remove this castle nut. It is a 24 millimeter. Now there's a couple different ways to break this ball joint loose. One way is to take a sledgehammer and kind of hit, like, I think it's right about here. A lot of times you can just kind of break it loose. You need almost a bigger hammer than what I've got here. But you could, if you're planning on not ever reusing this, get a pickle fork in there and take that off. Or you can do what I'm gonna do, and I'm gonna use a puller, which is easy peasy too. I'll post a link to this kit in the description as well. It comes in pretty handy if you do this kind of work pretty often. This is actually a ball joint separator. It's normally the tool that you would use to separate it rather than banging on the control arm with a sledgehammer. It's gonna be too small for a full-size truck like this, so instead we're just gonna use a 2-jaw puller. This is how it sets up, and it ain't bad at all. Now, and there it is, loose. I actually may reuse these lower control arms and push new bushings into them sometime when I have more time. Now we're just removing these lower control arm bolts. That there, let's go do the back one now. Now we should be able to just pull this torsion bar right out of here. Whoops. Ow, smashed my finger, but it's out. I'm using a Moog CK series, which is has the problem solver bearings in them. And that's the only control arms I recommend using. Now, you may be tempted right now to go ahead and grease this ball bearing. Do not do that. It'll make it a little more difficult to reinstall, and you also risk damaging the boot more if you grease it first. So we'll grease that at the very end. This is normally the spot where I would say in a video that installation is the reverse of removal, but in this case it is not. You do not want to slide that torsion bar into your new lower control arm yet. If you do that, it's going to make the whole assembly super heavy to reinstall and just give you problems. So we are going to start by, I like to get this ball bearing up in the slot here, and then we only mount the front of the control arm and we let the rear of it hang loose. As I put this up, I need to also line up all the other components. So I've got the front end, I've got that poking in the hole there, and I've got the ball joint in where it needs to go. I'm not putting in this bolt yet, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the torsion bar in through that hole next. Down and out would be good. There we go. So that's about the angle you want. What's that's doing is it's angling down so that you can put it in and through this when it's below the cross member there. So I line up my mark so it's at the top, and I go ahead, kind of get that thing started there. I'm gonna go to the very back and push now. Once you get it lined up good, it pushes right through. No big deal. It's just a matter of getting it lined up. Now that that's through there, now I can work on getting that bolt in. Okay, so I've got those bolts through. I am going to go ahead and tell you, you can put these nuts on, but do not torque them to spec yet. You do not torque either one of these bolts to go through the bushings to spec until this truck is on the ground. You want to confirm that your torsion bar has still got the paint mark up. This is the key. This is how it's going to sit in there. So it's going to actually slide up into the pocket of this frame rail, and then I'll put the torsion bar through it. So it's lined up front and back, barely in there. I couldn't really push it through anymore with my hands, so I'm just gonna. And I took it back to about that depth. Now we want to put tension back on this torsion bar so that we can get in our adjusting bolts. You can see that moves up out of the way. Then once that's up out of the way, this just slides in, and you take your bolt and get it in there. And then I can tighten it up until it gets to where the white stops. And that should be in the same spot as before. Once that's tightened to the right spot, then you can release the tool. And your torsion bar is installed. The rest of this is pretty simple. We're going to want to install the CV axle next. And I will tell you the torque specs for this side and that side of it here in just a minute on the screen. After the CV axle's in, then you can go ahead and install the shock lower mount, and you can get a nut on the sway bar end, and then you can get that castle nut on your ball joint. Once all of that is down, and again I'll give you the specs for it for the torque ratings, and you have everything torqued, then you can go ahead and lube that ball joint. And after you lube the ball joint, you're going to put this thing on the ground and you're going to torque these two lower control arm bolts.